Hey guys, this is a Figma tutorial for object styles and style presets. So first I'm going to show text styles. So I have over here, so here's kind of your layer info, your dimensions and constraints and things. Next is your text styles. So you've got your font family, your weight, font size. So I have typed in here 32. I could drop that down to 24. You have, this is line height, tracking. You have more advanced details in here. This is pretty dependent on what font you're using. So I'm using Inter, and it has a lot of options for character styles and things like that. So I can do monospace numbers, things like that. So that's going to really depend on who created the font and how much they cared about the customization. But anyway, the other thing that I use all the time are these different, it's basically different bounding box styles. So I'm pretty sure the default is this auto width. I use this a ton. It's basically a flexible size. So as I start typing, the bounding box moves. And if I change it to this auto width or auto height, now I can resize the width. And then as I start typing, it'll drop it down to multiple lines and keep that width how it is. And then this box will just contain all of the text. So it's still the size of the text with a fixed width, and then it can go as tall as you need it. And then the other one is this fixed size. So if I type again, it'll still drop down to multiple lines. It'll wrap at the width you have, and then the bounding box won't increase in height. So it'll just let text drop off outside of that bounding box forever. So yeah, if you switch it back to auto width at this point, it'll just drop it, or it'll bring it all back up onto the same line, and now it's this flexible width again. So I'll just get rid of that. Like I said, I use that a ton. I mean, I think it's just good to know when which one is appropriate, and a lot of that comes down to the constraints and how you're building a component with the text. The other thing actually that it can be pretty powerful with components is if you have this. So if this is going to drop down onto multiple lines, then you can change this vertical alignment. Actually, it's here. This will show it better if I say fixed. So it's fixed, so the bounding box is not going to get taller with the text as it wraps, but it's dropping down below. If I wanted to keep the text centered within this box, then I can click this align middle button, and then as it drops down onto multiple lines, it stays centered. Or I can say I want to keep the baseline where it is, and then it grows up from there. So once again, I mean, a lot of it just comes with using Figma and building components a lot and learning when you need to use what property, but it's something good to play around with. So yeah, I mean, these are just different text sizes and then different styles within the weight selection. And then I'll show in a minute, I'll show how to create style presets for the text and for fills and strokes and things. But so when I create a new object, this is going to be the default appearance. It's just a fill with this hex code, just this gray. I can change the color by either, if I want to type in the color, if I know the hex code, I can do that. I can click the square and I can use kind of a color picker. I've got hue, saturation, brightness. I can switch to HSL, RGB, hex code, whatever you prefer. Or I can eyedrop, so I can pick up the eyedropper and just click on an object. I can also just hit I, which is a carryover shortcut from Illustrator. I think Control C works also from Sketch, but I prefer I myself. So if I wanted to do a stroke, so if you saw that, I'll do that again. So the fill color is this royal blue, if I want this appearance, this stroke with the dark blue, if I just click on the color, it'll assume that you just want to change the existing property, which is just fill. If that's not the case, then you need to get rid of your fill and create a stroke, which this is another Illustrator shortcut that works as Shift X. You can swap your fill and stroke. So now, I'll make the stroke a little wider, and now I can eyedrop the color, and because I only have a stroke, it'll assume that that is the property you want to change when you eyedrop. That wouldn't work if I have a fill and I eyedrop. It'll assume that you want to change the fill. That's kind of the primary style that it'll try and change. But anyway, the other thing you can do to save time is if I want this this stroke color and the weight and everything, then I can select the object and hit Command Option C, and that'll copy all of this object's properties from fill, I think the layer, it'll copy the layer property or layer opacity, fill property, stroke properties, and effects. And then if I select this object and hit Command Option V, it'll paste them. So now it has exactly the same properties as this object. So that works with the effects too, like I was saying, so I can do that. But if I want to combine the three of these, then that doesn't work, because if I want this fill but I want to keep the drop shadow is gone when I paste the style. But if I go to this object and I select drop shadow, which this area that you can select is pretty small, but it should give you a little bit of a, well, it'll highlight it once you click it. That's how you'll know. Then you can copy, select your new object, and just paste with Command V. So you could do the same with stroke, but you'll notice it's only selecting the color row. It's not actually selecting the stroke width or style, like the inside, outside, center, or here's like end cap information. But I can grab the style or the color and I can paste it, and then I just need to manually change to match. So that's basically, that's styles. You can stack colors for fills and strokes. It'll default, when you create a new one, it'll default to a white gradient, but then you can click that and you can change. So here's like the sliders. I can change the color on this one. I can select this one and change the color. I could reposition them over here if that's easier. So anyway, so you can stack as many colors as you want for fills or strokes. If I switch them, see, it switches all of the fill colors with all of the stroke colors. So next, now if you have, if you're like, okay, this is the perfect button style, which who could argue with that? You can actually create a style preset out of it. So I'm going to copy this style, paste it onto this object. Now to create a preset, look for this 4-dot kind of grid icon. That's their style icon. So I can say I want this color blue with this gradient. I want that to be a style. So I'll say level, and I'm gonna call that sunset. And so now whenever I create a button, I can reuse that gradient, and I don't have to rebuild, with the royal blue and then the gradient and adjust all the colors each time. It's just use that style preset. And then I can do the same for each of these. So if this is my stroke color, which I've actually already created that color as a style for myself that I called level midnight. But here, I'll tweak it a little bit. There we go, lighten it up a little bit. Now I'll create a new style. And I'm not gonna use the level group this time. I'll just say colors, and I'll call it Twilight. So now you can see it actually is in a different group. Figma knows, because I said colors / Twilight, that it should be in a different group from the ones that I said level / noon and level / midnight. So that's how you can kind of organize and keep your colors separate by purpose, or by maybe you want to create a group for all your reds and your greens, so you have the shades organized, however you want to organize it. And then they also have a list view. So if you want to see, full color names written out and everything, that can be pretty handy. So now I have colors twilight saved. And then for drop shadow, I can do the same. I can say, okay, this is my level shadow 1. And I could stack multiple drop shadows into there if I wanted and create a very complex shadow, but I won't. So now to build my button, I can just grab these few colors. Maybe I want to add a corner radius. But anyway, so that saves a ton of time and can help with consistency. I would still recommend obviously using a component if it's like a complicated object with presets for each of these, but it saves a ton of time to not have to rebuild a color every time. And then like I was saying, it's really cool that you can use that preset for fills or for strokes. And then as you can see, if you deselect all of your objects, then on this right-hand panel, then you can see here's all of your text styles, here's all of your color styles, and here's all your effects. And then from there you can edit. So if I want to tweak this color, then I can just hit this kind of settings icon. I can select the gradient, and as I move this around, it'll change on any objects. Oh, I wonder if that's not, yeah, that's not using it. Okay, my bad. So here, I'll create a couple copies too, and you can see. Okay, so if I go back into here and I edit, I can change the gradient and see on the fly every instance is updating live. So that's really the benefit of styles, is the consistency that it can give you if you make changes down the line, because that's where we run into trouble. Is we think everything's perfect. A month later, there's one small change, but you've made 5,000 copies of the object that uses that style. So this is where that really can save you. So that works with text styles also. Here, I'm gonna delete this italic one. Actually, let me just right-click it and show you how you create that. So it's the same thing. You just look for the 4 dots, select your object, and say new style. And I'll just say text italic. So you can see this one I called bold/large, bold/medium. If I just say text/italic, now in the selection box, it regroups that under a text section. So if I create copies, same thing, I can just go into large. I can say this is not supposed to be 32, that's too big. I'm gonna go 24. Of course, I hadn't assigned these to the text style. That's crucial. Let me show you on medium. So medium, okay. If I want to tweak that to 14, you can see all of the instances change. And same with, I'll do italic if it's supposed to be bold italic. You get the idea. It's really cool too, actually. All of the styles, you can add a description. So you can say, okay, well, italics, it's used for helper text. And so now anyone using your library, if they click on this, then they can see that helper text. And it'll kind of just help them understand the purpose of the style, or maybe some basic guidelines. So anyway, that's basically it for styles and style presets. If I left anything out, or if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. If you learned something, like and subscribe.